Hello, and a very warm welcome indeed to this afternoon's iOB business webinar. It's a pleasure to have you on here and a very happy Wednesday to you as well. Okay, so just whilst we're letting everybody join in, we've got a few people in here already. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join because we're a couple of minutes off the 2 o'clock mark for now, which is when we're going to get kicked off. Today's topic is how to expand your professional circle. Okay, it's something that's very, very important that we discuss, something that's very, very useful to you as you develop and grow throughout your business career. Okay, so couple of operations as to how this webinar works today. Okay, so first of all, we're going to do a brief introduction as we are now with myself. My name is Ben, and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. Now, shortly, we're going to be diving into the presentation. The presentation itself, the webinar is going to cover, it's going to run for around about 15 to 20 minutes or so. And then at the end, we're going to do a brief Q&A session to answer all of those questions that you lovely people have for us. Now, throughout today's session, you're more than welcome to ask any of these questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen there. It should be gray, it should say Q&A, and you can go ahead and ask any questions relating to business, marketing, digital agencies, anything you need to know. Okay, now, final thing to note is in between each of the three topics that we're going to discuss today, I will indeed give you a brief moment to jot down any notes and ask away with any questions that you may have for us as well. Okay, so as we're just approaching the 2 o'clock mark, I'm going to go ahead and get us set up on our presentation for today. So if I stop my video camera, you shouldn't be able to see my face anymore, but you should still be able to hear my voice. Okay, so today's topic, once again, how to expand your professional circle. Now, if you could do me a big favor just before we get kicked off, just getting ourselves ready here. Okay, welcome to those of you that are joining us now. It's a pleasure to have you here. Okay, so if you could just give me a quick confirmation, if you put a 1 or a thumbs up or a yes in the chat box, and just let me know that you can hear my voice okay, and let me know that you can see the presentation up on screen okay, and then I will get us fired off with today's presentation. Wonderful, loud and clear, good to go. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much, as always. So today's conversation, how to expand your professional circle. Let us get kicked off. Okay, your presenter today is myself. My name is Ben, and I'm a business coach. My specialty is in working with small businesses, just like many of you on here today, and helping them achieve stability and growth. Okay, helping small businesses, helping people who want to start small businesses. That's my forte, and that's what I love to do, and that's what I get to talk to you about today. Okay, so number one of the first of the three topics we're going to cover today, your professional circle is your professional potential. Okay, a big theory in all walks of business. The more people you know, generally talking, the more stuff you can get done. Okay. So number two, it's not always easy, but you've got to do it, okay? It's something that needs to be done. You need to have at least a few decent, valuable contacts within your professional circle that can help you get stuff done as and when you need it, okay? If you think about it right now, I'm certain there'll be people in your life, in your professional life, that help you get things done if you have to think about who they are. And finally, techniques to forge lasting relationships, okay? So these three things we're going to talk about, the golden three here today, when we're talking about how to develop, how to grow your professional circle. Okay, so let us get kicked off with topic number one. Okay, so once again, feel free to ask questions all the way throughout the presentation. I will see them coming at the time, but then I'll answer them at the end of the session during the Q&A bit for you. And we're also going to give you a chance to jot down any notes as well for those of you that are just joining. So please don't feel rushed. Please don't feel anything other than valuable content coming your way. Okay, so your professional circle is your professional potential. All right, now first things first, running a business is not a solo mission. Okay, we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we allowed ourselves to believe that running a business only mattered to us. It only pertains to us. Okay, running a business, generally speaking, you're going to need more than one person, if not directly managing and running the business. Okay, now there's different context of this. So the easiest one that I can give you here is using the example that running a business is not a solo mission. Let's say that you run a digital agency. Okay, now, generally speaking, the person that manages the business might be doing that on their own, and that's not uncommon. You've got your CEO, for example, you've got your managing directors, you've got your owners, operators. Okay, now, in this context, managing a business to an extent, okay, managing the overview of the business can be a solo mission, but the business in itself, running that business, is not a solo mission. Okay, we've got accountants to help us with finances. We've got our team, our workforce that help us deliver the service that we offer. We've got certain seats and roles within the organization that help things continue to take over, because if we've got somebody like ourselves who is trying to manage the accounting, the finance, the sales, the marketing, the fulfillment and delivery of the services, for example. Meanwhile, we're trying to run the business. We're trying to make sure that it's growing. We're trying to make sure that it's staying in a healthy, positive cash flow state. We're trying to make sure if all of these different things are happening, that's an awful lot for one person to take care of. Okay. So never be afraid to accept the fact that you can't do everything. Okay. Running a business is not a solo mission. Most businesses that start up, you find that the owner, the founder is very, very busy because they are trying to run it as a solo mission until it's making enough money to start paying for this help. Okay. You can send your books off to an accountant to get help with that. You can delegate some of your fulfillment to a team member that you've just brought on board. Okay. Stuff like that can be very, very useful. In the offset, potentially, yes, okay, fair enough. It is a bit of a solo mission, but it's not really a state that you want to stay in if you want to hit yourself, if you want to hit financial and really just overall peak performance within your business, okay? So every individual has their own independent network. Now, this is something that I want you to think about, and something that the more you understand, the more you may see value in building connections with other people. Okay. So if we take yourself, for example, okay, think about your network. Personally, who do you know? Do you have family members, friends? Do any of them own businesses? Do any of them need assistance from businesses? And I mean any business, okay? Do any of them exist in any kind of sphere where they might need or use something from someone in their circle somewhere, even in their personal life, okay? Now, let's say that in this personal walk, okay, you yourself personally, you like to go for an Italian meal on a Friday night, okay? Well, somebody has to own that business in order for it to operate, okay? Now, somebody else has to make the food, somebody else has to deliver the food to your table, somebody has to then clean up that food, okay? So just a connection of your personal network, you've got 3 or 4 people helping you achieve just that one thing. For you, maybe it's just a plate of pasta, but for the business, it's a full service fulfillment delivery. Okay. Now, the relevance of this is that even in your personal circle, if you're friendly with the owner, let's say, okay, even in your personal circle, you have a professional friend. Okay. Now, this applies in many different ways or professional friend, acquaintance, contact, whatever you want to call it. Now, this does apply in many different categories in many different ways. Okay. There'll be other friends of yours, other family members that have professional roles in other places. Now, in your professional, specifically in your professional network, if you have a job, you'll have colleagues, you'll have a boss, you'll work for a business, most likely, okay? Now, even if you work a public job, you'll know other professionals, you'll need work requirements that need done, okay? If you have a job with the council, undoubtedly, they'll have jobs that need done, service fulfillment by someone somewhere, okay? So our circles in general are usually bigger than we think. If you really think about everybody you know or speak to or have an acquaintance within your personal life, and you think about everybody you know, speak to, or have an acquaintance with in your professional life, there's a very, very good chance that you know an enormous amount of people, okay, who can offer different things to each independent circle. Now, this is an absolutely crucial thing to bear in mind, because if this is the situation for you, why would that be so different for somebody else, let's say, okay? Now, another professional, another friend of yours, a contact that you've never met before, every individual has their own independent network. So let's say that you had a friend that owned a business and somebody else was a digital marketing agency. Your friend was looking for a digital marketer, okay? Now, if that person knew you, okay, the digital service agency knew you could then refer them to your friend who required that service. If you look at it as a triangle, you know 2 people who could connect and benefit from knowing each other, okay? So the more people you know, the more potential networks, the more potential triangles, the connection triangles that you open up, okay? If you know somebody who knows somebody else who could help you benefit from doing a very specific or certain thing to benefit your business, then it's always going to be a beneficial scenario, okay? So every individual has their own independent network. Now, when you meet someone, you potentially meet their network too, okay? Now, this depends on the person, on the contact, how willing they are to connect you with their network. And we're going to cover some kind of principles of how you can balance this and how you can try and ensure that this person does feel comfortable enough with you and does like you enough to actually introduce you to their network. But what is absolutely crucial that you remember is that when you meet somebody, you're not just meeting them, you're potentially meeting their entire network. Really, what that depends on is whether they want to introduce you to that network or not, okay? But this is how you see entrepreneurs. You see people developing and they've been connecting with loads and loads of people. And if you're friends with an entrepreneur that has loads and loads of contacts, it's not because they strive to meet every single one of these person individually, okay, every one of these people individually. It's because they know someone who knows someone who can connect them to someone else, okay? It's a very, very big thing. And if you think, okay, well, specifically where we are in our local city even, can we connect ourselves to a big network across the city just by knowing even a few people, okay? So when you meet someone, you potentially meet their network too. Now, there are lots of experts in lots of industries, okay? So this is your professional potential we're talking about. People can add value in so many different ways. They can add value by contributing to your business. They can help you achieve something new. They can add value by purchasing one of your services. They can add value by connecting you with somebody that could benefit from your service or could help you grow your business. They can connect you with somebody who has advertising boards. They can connect you with somebody who runs workshops, for example. There's so many different pieces of potential here. And this is why you should also never truly disregard somebody else's advice or somebody's potential to assist you, okay? We never want to be too quick to say, no, you don't know anything here. I don't really need or want your advice, okay? So that's something that you've got to make sure that we don't do too much. We've got to keep an open mind, because many people are many experts in many fields. There's always something that we can learn, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and leave that up on screen for you there for just a minute. Please do go ahead and fire away with any questions, and indeed take a moment to jot down some notes, and I'll be right back with you. All right, perfect. So now you've had a chance to do that, we can dive on to topic number 2 for today. It's not always easy, but you have to do it. Okay, so nobody said that expanding your network was easy. It takes effort, and sometimes it does take overcoming certain fears. Okay, some of us don't always find it so easy to go to these networking events. Now, let's note, I guess, on the side here that it's not the only way, to meet people is going to a networking event. You can meet people in certain environments. You can meet them in a work environment. You can meet them in an expo, at a conference that you're both at. You could be introduced through a mutual friend, through a mutual colleague, through a mutual contact. Okay, there's so many ways to meet people, both in personal and professional circles. You say you enjoy going to a book club and you make some friends there because you have a common interest, or say that you go to a cafe on the regular and you get friendly with the owner. Okay, there's all kinds of different ways in which you can develop friendships, contacts, connections with other people. And it's not specifically just going to networking events, because, yeah, accepted, case in point, these networking events, if there's a room with 30 people that you don't know in it, and everybody's kind of talking in their own little circles, that's because they've tried to find comfort. They've come in and they've been looking for somebody to speak to, and they're keeping that conversation going, most likely because they're a bit worried about who they might speak to if that conversation stops. Okay, it can be quite an intimidating atmosphere for most people. And remember that you're not the only one in this scenario who's going to struggle in the context of meeting new people. Okay, it's not necessarily an easy thing. Now, if you're not such a fan of networking events for one reason or another, there are lots of other ways to meet people, as we just discussed. But sometimes it also does take overcoming your fear a little bit. What is it that actually makes you worried when you walk into that room full of people? Is it the fact that you think you're going to be judged? Is it the fact that you don't know what to talk about? Because whether you believe it or not, in this context of, no, I'm just worried, I just don't like it. Okay, there is no reason really. I'm just uncomfortable in this situation. Now, whilst to an extent, I'm not going to argue that could possibly be true, absolutely. But I would love to have the opportunity to maybe share with you that there might be a certain thing in your head that's causing you to worry, okay, in your mind. So let's say that the reason you're a little bit panicky or a little bit scared about going into this room full of 30 people is because you're fearful of being judged for the way that you walk, talk, or dress, okay, potentially. Is this potentially a possibility that this might be the way that you feel? In addition to that, the room's a little bit too hot. You don't do well in heat. You prefer the room to be more cool, okay? Or flip it around. You're a bit too cold. You prefer to be more warm. I know it sounds a little bit funny, but these things can really change the way that you feel about going into a certain environment, okay? Now, in addition to that, are you worried that you might not be able to hold a conversation, or perhaps worried that they actually don't want to speak to you and that you're interrupting them, okay? Now, I want you to eliminate that particular fear from your mind, okay? Because a networking event, a specific networking event, is designed for everybody to interact with everyone. The most valuable thing those 30 people could do in that room is speak to the other 29 people, okay? Now, sometimes there's not always time for that, but that is the single most valuable thing that those people could do. At a networking event, you don't want to spend all your time talking to one specific person, because you've got 29 other people to meet if it's a 30-person networking event. But you start to get the logic that I'm using here, okay? So sometimes we have to look at overcoming those fears. Now, the second thing you've got to do is assure yourself of your own self-worth and your validity, okay? You've got to make sure that you trust in what you're doing, that you're happy with where you are, and that you understand, I deserve to be here. I have something to offer other people. My conversation is valuable. My conversation is interesting. Okay, I can deal with a little bit too hot or a little bit too cold. That's fine. I'm going to put that out my head and I'm just going to move on. I'm dressed really well. I feel very confident. Okay, I just feel like the best version of me today, and I'm going to do a great job when I go into this networking room. Okay, these are the types of things that I want you to tell yourself. Now, I'm focusing on this one specifically because, in my experience, this is the sort of situation or the atmosphere that people have the most difficulty with. And I understand. It's easy to freeze up. It's easy to not know what to say. You're trying to have a conversation, you're just nodding, but nothing comes to mind to say again. All right. But what might help you assure yourself of this as well, they're probably feeling the same way. Okay. Give yourself the confidence. What would it be if it was in a personal situation? If you bumped into somebody in the shop and you started chatting, okay, would that be easier? Probably, because you're not concerned about trying to achieve a certain standard. You're just being you. Okay. So you've got to assure yourself of your own self-worth and your own validity. You're a great person. You have much to offer. Your conversation is valuable. Validate yourself and go in there and do really, really well. Okay. So an opportunity to pass over a business card is always a good one. Okay. Now, like we said earlier in this webinar, you never truly know what somebody else might be capable of in terms of offering value to your business, connecting you to someone else. So passing over a business card, these really don't cost much. If you get a batch of like 500, I don't want to give you a specific number. I don't really know exactly, but maybe a few pence, maybe 20, 30, 40 pence per business card, probably not even that much. Say you pay £10 for 500 business cards. What's that? I don't want you to catch me out with my maths here. Let's say it's, 5, 10, 15 pence a card or whatever. The point is, okay, that an opportunity to pass over a business card is always a good one, okay, because it costs you almost nothing to give this business card over, but you don't know the potential that it could have. Now, we're speaking in the metaphorical context of a business card. Doesn't always have to be a business card. It can be contact information. It can be social media profiles. It can be a suggestion to visit your website. It can be meeting up for coffee again, whatever. Okay, the opportunity to pass over a business card is really being used as a metaphor for the opportunity to make a new contact. Okay, now with your information, this could go to any valuable place potentially. It could go to somebody else who needs your services. It could go to somebody else that could help you become better at your services or grow your business. So an opportunity to pass over a business card is always a good one. I want you to remember that as you go forward. So your opportunities to grow your network will most likely come in the following forms. Okay, now let's talk about these one by one. We've got 6 of them here. Number 1, in-person networking events. Okay, we just spent an awful lot of time covering what these are, so we don't need to cover too much again, but we're running through the opportunities that you're most likely going to get to grow your business and what these would look like in a physical form. Okay, business expos. Okay, these are something that usually are based around a certain topic or a certain idea, and you go there and you enjoy something in the industry that you're all in together. Now, of course, there's a common interest here. Let's say if you are working in the construction industry and you go to a construction tools expo, let's say, okay, and there's just tons of new tools and tech and gear and hardware everywhere, it's much more likely that you're going to meet somebody that you have a common interest with there, because they're looking at the same thing as you. They work in the same industry as you do, otherwise they wouldn't be there. Okay, business events, you find that you can go to training seminars, training conferences, things that people teach at. Okay, maybe you're a student, maybe you're the teacher, but at these business events, you've got lots of like-minded people in the same room, usually entrepreneurs, people who want to develop themselves. And again, this is something that you could have a common interest with. And sometimes at these events, you're asked to work in groups, which can also help with that sort of atmosphere and help you encourage yourself and somebody else to kind of converse and communicate and build some kind of relationship and rapport. Online groups, another great one. Okay, you've got these on Facebook. You've got these in various forums on specific niche topics. Okay, online groups are a fantastic way to meet people that generally comes with a little bit less pressure, because you're not face to face. You're not forced to do anything in a specific time frame. When you're speaking to somebody, face to face, you don't really have time to think of a full response. You kind of just have to go with whatever you think is right at the time. So if somebody asks you a question, you don't have much time to think. You can't just, typically anyway, you can't stand face to face with somebody and then take 5 minutes to respond after they ask you a question. But with online groups, you typically can do this because you might not have seen the comment or the question yet, or you might just be thinking of what you want to say or whatever, but they do usually alleviates pressure for this reason. Okay, now courses, webinars, online networking, all great ways as well. So if you're doing the same course as somebody else, you're on the same webinar as somebody else, or you're in the same online networking group as somebody else, these are all great opportunities to meet somebody else who's doing the same thing that you're doing. So imagine like a business event, but it's online. There's still an interactive, well, sometimes, okay, not every time, but sometimes there's still an interactive element of these, sort of setups, these events, these online systems that can help you interact with other people and therefore help you ideally build a relationship and rapport with the people that you're doing that with. Okay, and you've also got social events and sports clubs. Okay, so something like this, a social event, you might find that you've got other professionals in the room. Okay, so say you go to like a wine tasting event or a whiskey tasting event, or something along those lines, or anything like that. Really, you might find that you meet other people with common interest all over, say, a specific type of whiskey. If you're at a whiskey tasting event, you've got a common interest, but maybe the person that you're speaking to, they own a business that could do with your help. Okay. Same with sports clubs. Okay. One that always comes to mind with this is your kind of country clubs and your golf clubs, where generally there's usually kind of groups of people who can come together within these sports clubs that, almost like a kind of private networking setup, as it were. They offer special events for members, and they can put on certain opportunities for you to speak with each other. Around golf specifically, you can play around with a new group and you can start chatting to these people and see what they do. All sorts of things can unfold from this. So with the sports clubs that you're part of, tennis clubs, football clubs, you're chatting to people all the time. Okay, you're being a very social person, therefore allowing yourself more social opportunities to develop in front of you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of topic number 2. I'm going to give you a brief moment now. Please do go ahead and jot down any notes, and indeed fire away any questions that you might have. And I'll see you very, very shortly for topic number 3. Okay, perfect. So we are now coming on to topic number 3, techniques to forge lasting relationships. Okay, so we've got 4 bits of advice for you here, and we're going to dive onto a recap, then we're going to cover the Q&A at the end. Okay, so the third and final topic, techniques to forge lasting relationships. Now, first things first here, we're looking at the technique, we're looking at the strategy. Okay, how do we make sure that when we meet somebody, the relationship lasts for a good time and it's valuable throughout? Okay, so the first thing we want to make sure that we don't do is ask for anything up front. Okay, this makes you look incentivized by monetary gain. So say you meet somebody at a networking event and it's going great, and then you ask them almost immediately if they want to become a client. They might find this, and it's going to sound a little strange, but even potentially a bit hurtful, because they think that you've tried to build a relationship with them, for the sake of being a good contact, a good partner, potentially a good friend, whatever. And they can be taken a little bit off guard if you go to them and you say, hey, would you like to buy my service? Okay, they might feel a little bit even deceived sometimes. And this is not the way that it's all you want them to feel. And I'm sure never your intention. But if you've just met somebody and you ask them to do business with you immediately, this is what it can look like. Okay, now, I know this will make sense more than some other concepts, and it won't make sense as much as other concepts to some people. It depends how we look at things. Okay, now, not everybody's going to be offended, okay, if you do ask for business immediately, but some people would be. So it's just about understanding every side, every element of every aspect that we possibly can to make sure that we're always being the best version of ourselves around new people. So the reason that we can't ask for anything up front is because it makes us look incentivized by monetary gain and monetary gain only. Okay, now if this is your primary mission, that's fine. There was actually an event organizer, a networking organizer that I spoke with in recent history, who I had a conversation with, and I was just asking him, I said, how does your networking work? How do you run your groups, etc.? And he said, well, everybody that's new that comes in, you're not allowed to ask anybody for business within the group. It's a safe environment where you don't try and charge each other. You simply allow somebody who knows somebody else to connect them with you if they feel like that's an appropriate connection to make. So it can be profitable being in this networking group, but not directly from the members within. The members of the networking group are more so encouraged, and I thought this was very clever by this man, to encourage their members to connect the other members with people in their network. Okay, so we're talking about circles of contacts here. So don't ask for anything up front. This makes you look incentivized by monetary gain. Okay, next thing that we can do is be respectful of your new contact's time, but seek to meet them again. Okay, so we don't want to be asking questions, especially, you can, of course, you're welcome to ask questions, but we don't want to be asking them in a sort of obsessive format where we can see that they're clearly trying to leave the door, but because we want some information from them, we're not sort of, of course, not restraining anyone, but, sort of not allowing them the practical opportunity to leave, shall we say. If somebody's trying to walk away and you start talking, or asking more questions, they're going to feel inclined to come back and continue the conversation, even if that's something that they don't particularly want to do. So that's just a little bit of social programming, a little bit of social skills, where we always want to be respectful of somebody's time. So if it's clear that they need to be somewhere or go somewhere else, and they're not, more interested in having the conversation than they are trying to go and do whatever they do, then we should be mindful of this. But by all means say, okay, I can see that you've got to go. It's been wonderful speaking with you. Is there any chance that we could actually chat again? Can I give you a call? Can we go and get a coffee? Can we meet over Zoom? Whatever you want to do with them, but seek to meet again if you can, because this, done in the right way, will help you cement the relationship further. Okay. Now, here's a good rule: offer something before you ask for something. Okay. So if you've written a piece of content, you've developed a book, you've got a great website that somebody else can get ideas from, offer this to them before you ask for something in return. Okay. So always be willing to offer something. So say you've just written a book, you want to say to this person, hey, I've just written this wonderful book. I usually do charge for it, when I'm selling it to the sort of to the public, but for you, you seem like a great person, and I want to give this to you. Can I just, jot this book over to you? Is that all right? And I'm sure that they'll be more than grateful to receive the book free of charge. Okay, so offer something before you ask for something. Now, finally, build rapport. Use the technique of mirroring. Okay, now if mirroring something that you're not familiar with, in theory, what happens with mirroring is you try and replicate the way somebody else is acting in order to help them feel more comfortable. Okay, so if they're a little bit more quiet and a little bit more softly spoken like this, then you should try and reciprocate, and additionally be softly spoken and help them feel more comfortable. Now, where you're hearing me speak now, this is my kind of neutral tone. This is where I'm not necessarily elevated. I'm not necessarily being softly spoken. I'm trying to educate on a webinar. So my firm but gentle tone is something that helps me teach. Okay, now in a different format, I would try and match somebody. So if I was speaking to somebody who potentially wanted to do business with my business, I would be much more willing to listen to what they need me to do in that situation. So if they're speaking like this and they're very, very firm, I'll try and reciprocate the firmness, because if I'm reciprocating their firmness, it gives this subconscious level of respect to say, okay, well, sometimes people are intimidated by me, but you're not intimidated by me. I never mean to intimidate anyone, but I do like when people match my energy. Let's do business. Okay, now it's not always as simple as that, but if they're softly spoken, try and be softly spoken as well. If they're firmly spoken, try and be firmly spoken as well. Different mannerisms as well. If they have sort of a little bit of a nervous body language, try and make your body language nice and relaxed. Try not to wave your hands about too much. Just whatever you would do naturally to make somebody feel more confident, allow your body language to relax, therefore helping somebody else also feel relaxed. Okay, now mirroring can work both ways. So make sure that your body language is nice and relaxed and welcoming. I want to have a conversation. I hope that you feel comfortable to have one with me too. Okay, so the technique of mirroring applies in many, many different ways, but the main things that you need to kind of remember, just try and match their energy. If whatever they're speaking, what their body language looks like, the words that they're using. Okay, so if they're using words that aren't overly long or complex, try not to use so many big, complicated words yourself. Okay, try and stick to more basic language tones. Okay, now if you're comfortable as well, okay, if somebody's using complex tones and language notes, then try and replicate. Okay, now what we don't want to do is, if we're not somebody who likes speaking in very, very complex jargon, should we say, don't be afraid to kind of dial back from that, because this isn't mirroring at all. This is just being confident and being yourself, which can be equally as respected sometimes. Okay, but you find that if you try and keep up with something that you don't really know much about, so if somebody's talking about a very, very complicated element of their specific niche and you're not really familiar with that environment, just be honest. It's okay. They'll probably respect you more, honestly, for being honest about it. Okay, so those are the techniques here. This is how we can look to build forge lasting relationships. Okay, so we're at the end of topic number 3. I'm going to give you a brief moment now. Please do go ahead and jot down any notes and fire away any questions. Thank you for the one on the last topic. I got that, and we will see if we get any more by the time we get into the Q&A session. Okay, now to recap on today's webinar, professional network equals professional potential. Okay, so make sure that we're looking to grow our professional network as much as we can, because it will likely increase our professional potential. Okay, next, take the opportunities to grow your network. All right, when an opportunity comes your way, if you're comfortable, if you're confident, try and grasp that opportunity. And finally, forge a lasting relationship with a valuable contact. You could find that this serves you very, very well. Okay, so as always, thank you very much for attending. If you would like to talk to a member of our team, you're more than welcome to head over to iob-business.com/talk-to-us. And on there, you can go ahead and book a call at a time that suits you. You can see an example of the calendar here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that link up on screen for you now whilst I go and grab your questions. Okay, awesome. I've got a couple of questions in. So I'm going to go ahead and answer these questions. Feel free to listen, feel free to stick around. Any more questions that you've got, please fire them away. And I'll leave that link up on screen there so that you can go ahead and access that if you would like to. Okay, so question number one, I'm not a very confident person. All right, cool. You know, many people aren't. Okay, so what you could do is you could ease yourself in with these online groups that we discussed first, and then reassure yourself of your self-worth, okay, because you're an amazing person, you're capable of so much. So reassure yourself of this. Comes back down to the self-confidence, the validity in oneself, okay? But to sort of aid you or help you in that, don't go in head first. Make sure that you ease yourself in with online networking groups, get familiar with conversation, get familiar with just generally being comfortable around other people to begin with. If this is something that's fairly new to you, or if you're just typically not a very confident person, you would like to work on that, okay? Time can help you very, very much with these types of things. Amazing question, thank you. Next question, can you clarify mirroring a little further? Sure can. So mirroring is when you increase your chances of likability really by replicating the behaviorisms of the other person, okay? Mirroring is specifically designed to help somebody like you, okay? If we're using basic terminology here, we do mirroring because we want somebody to like us as a person. So if somebody likes us as a person, they're more likely to entertain conversation, they're more likely to listen to us, they're more likely to be open to the fact that we're offering them something, and they would see our offer of service in exchange for a fee, not as a kind of trick or a con. They would see it or you know, grasping an opportunity, okay, even if it's a perfectly valid, useful service. Instead, they would look at it as, wow, that person's really trying to help me. Maybe they're even giving me a discount or something, okay? So mirroring is very, very important because it's really the first step in getting somebody to like us. Replicating their behavior, taking a genuine interest in what they're saying, their mannerisms, their vocal tones, all these kinds of things. Okay, it's a wonderful, wonderful topic, something we've actually done a lot of content on. Okay, so be sure to tune into these webinars. It's something we talk about an awful lot. Thank you very much. Amazing question. All right, cool. So let me check if I've got any more questions for today. All right, cool. Looks like that is us then for today's session. So as always, it's been a total pleasure presenting to you today. A very, very happy Wednesday. I hope you have the wonderful rest of the week, and I very much look forward to speaking with you again in the near future. Take care and bye for now.